This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
So welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne, and of course you know this is an England supporters podcast. Now I think it is stating the obvious that we're living in strange times at the moment. Daily lives change, routines affected, football, be it club or international, affected. And whilst it's not a major priority at the moment, it is of course something that brings people together, be it for joy or pain. And it's something that we all enjoy and takes away life's distractions when we all meet up. And sadly, that's something that we can't do at the moment. So I'm just going to try and put some smiles on people's faces, some positivity with a series of podcasts that look back on various England games. In fact, your first England away trip. We all love to travel. We all love to follow our national team. So why not rekindle those memories? And to get the ball rolling, I'll start. My first England game was a trip to Athens, Greece, back in 2001 for a 2002 World Cup qualifier. And I went with a very good friend of mine, Dan Smart, who I'm pleased to say is joining me to reminisce. Dan.
Afternoon.
You all right?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah, thought this is an ideal opportunity in these odd times to put some positivity on people's faces and being as we basically both popped our England away cherry at the same time.
That's right. Yeah, it's crazy to think that was 19 years ago, nearly. So,
well, I think I was 23, and I guess you would have been 23 too.
Exactly. Yeah, 2001. Yeah, if I do my maths.
So we hopped on the England away bandwagon. It was quite a distance, really, for a first game. Greece, wasn't it?
I think the thing then was that you couldn't do independent travel as much. So the likes of EasyJet and Ryanair were very much only sort of in the beginnings.
True.
So I remember we actually booked a package holiday because that was the easiest way to get there.
Although you'd think with the game being in Athens, we would have gone to Athens, though, wouldn't you?
Well, that would have been maybe a bit more ideal. But if I remember at the time, that might have been beyond our youthful budget.
True, yes. So we headed right to the very top of Greece to, well, I thought initially it was Thessalonica or Salonika as people know it, but apparently not.
No, we went to nearby though, but Halkidiki, which is the little, I think they call it the fingers of Greece, where all these little peninsulas stick out.
So right at the top, yeah, I do remember. We went there for it was about 2 or 3 days beforehand, I think, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. So we had some time, in the sun because it wasn't bad weather before we had to make the rather, should we say, long journey to Athens.
Now, you said to me, who did you say we flew with? Or did you not?
Sort of random charter airline that I've never heard of since.
Yeah, but they weren't English, and you reminded me that they said that we were flying at about 35 feet.
Yeah, you thought, this was going to be a bit of a scary journey all the way to Greece.
Kind of looked at each other with sort of eyes opening wide if we're flying at that height. But no, I think it was 35,000 feet, I guess would have been. So. Yeah. So, yeah, this was, 6th of June was the day of the game. So we flew over there. I don't know, it must have been 2nd, 3rd, I guess, of June to Halkidiki. A few days in the sun. And I seem to remember, because as you say, it was a package holiday, and we were in this sort of hotel come resort area. And I think we'd done a bit of a recce of the area of how to get down to Athens. But we said to like the hotel rep, what's the best way to get to Athens? And she kind of looked at us with what do you want to go to Athens for?
Yeah, definitely a long way, wasn't it? So
yeah. Well, so she kind of, I guess, gave us the way to get there. So train is your best way. So we recce'd that, and we got a taxi across town in Salonika, which was a bit of a hairy ride, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Greeks are not known for their considerate driving, are they? So
we'd say recce'd it all out, and we aimed for a fast train. which so if you picture in Greece, you've got Salonika or Thessalonica right at the very top, and then Athens is right down the very bottom. So we would be scouting down the coast on the train, and we'd planned for a 5-hour train journey, and which I guess is that from sort of London to Newcastle, I guess.
A bit further than that, probably, but yeah.
Yeah. And
but doable. 5 hours sounds kind of doable, doesn't it?
Yeah, 5 hours on a train. You just have a couple of beers and maybe a bit of a sleep, and you'd be there. But no, our taxi didn't really go to plan, did it?
No, we did. We missed the train by about 2 minutes. I do remember the taxi driver telling us that it wouldn't be a problem, though, because trains in Greece never run on time. So this obviously was the only one that ever ran on time in Greece, because as we ran up the stairs to the platform, off it was on its way to Athens without us.
I know. I seem to remember just sort of standing there thinking, what in the world do we do now? How are we going to get to Athens? Because that must have been early doors that we'd got this taxi across the city to the station. But yeah, we then managed to get a later one, which took us 8 hours, didn't it?
Yeah, it didn't leave much behind it, but of course, yeah, 3 hours on top. It was a long journey. The train was very, how should we say, dated, wasn't it? And
yeah,
the journey was quite a long. 8 hours was a long period of time to go on a train. I remember the 2 Finnish girls in our carriage that got off at Mount Olympus about halfway down, I think, and we're just like deadly jealous that they managed to get off this horrific train.
Yeah, because it was winding around the mountains, wasn't it? Really, I mean, if you're someone who suffers with some sort of car sickness or train sickness equivalent, then it wasn't really a pleasant journey. I mean, visually it was stunning, but yeah, it was winding its way around the mountains, wasn't it?
Yeah. Look outwards, not down, kind of thing was the key there. Yes.
Yeah, I've got a feeling I did look down at one stage, and you actually think, wow, we are so close to the edge of the mountain there. But yeah, 8-hour train, had 3 hours added on, kind of put paid to a little bit of exploring around Athens, didn't it?
Yeah, we got there so late. I think we had to sort of find the metro and get straight to the stadium.
Do you know, there was one thing that always seems to that I always remember. I don't know if you remember this one, but it was coming out of the metro and on our way towards the ground or that sort of area. We were in and around a group of England fans, and they were slightly older than us, but I think England at the time still had that sort of stigma. England fans sort of still had that stigma, and there was, I can still see it now, there was this mother with a young child, be it, I don't know, 3, 4, 5-ish, and there was a few England fans. We were walking along, and we got to a Pelican Crossing, and one of the England fans in front of us gave his cap to this little boy. And this woman, initially, she was all a bit sort of stand back, like to a child, stand back. There's a lot of England fans coming through. But this guy gave this little boy his hat, which I thought was a really nice touch. I don't know if you remember that one. Or
I do now you mentioned the story. I think, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's a reputation that precedes England because of a minority. Yeah. And actually, it's not, and that's around the world, around Europe, isn't it? Is always be wary of,
sadly,
of football fans. But actually, most of them that follow are people that are genuine guys that, like to support their team, often like a beer maybe, but they're friendly. They're not out to cause trouble. And yeah, it's a shame that the minority have given us that reputation, even though it's pretty much so long ago that was happening.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I do remember when we did eventually get to the ground, being my first England away game, there was just English people everywhere. It seems really silly to say it, but it was like being in Salonika for 2-3 days previous, where it was obviously predominantly Greece. I don't remember there being too many holidaymakers around, but all of a sudden, everywhere you looked, and the only language you could hear was English, all basically waiting to get through the turnstiles.
Yeah, it was almost like we were the home team in a way, because I think, to be fair, to a certain extent, the police, I remember the police being very visual on the way up, and maybe they filtered us all into a certain part of the stadium, and we were quickly separated from the Greek fans. But certainly we didn't feel in the minority when we went towards the stadium.
Do you remember how much we paid for our tickets?
No idea, but obviously the Greek would have had the drachma in those days, I assume. So way before the times of euros.
Yeah, so I've actually still got my ticket stub here, and it's just ripped right on it. But I'm pretty sure it's 20,000 drachma, which I've just had a quick look. I think works out about £35. Does that sound about right?
Maybe it sounds quite expensive actually, but
it does. But
we know that sometimes teams used to get their money's worth from the England fans, didn't they? Because they travelled well.
True. I mean, I found out that the attendance was 29,300, so there was a fair few in there. But it was it the Olympic Stadium?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So there were obviously quite a few patches of empty seats dotted around, and I seem to remember that we as England fans were dotted on one of the corners, like the corner flag.
Yeah, it was kind of like we had almost like a quarter of the ground, didn't we? But it was, I do remember it being very low down. It's not like we had a second tier or anything, but that might be just from where we were sitting. I think there was a tier above us, but whether there were England fans above us, I don't know. Was there a tier around the top? Was it just like a single bowl? Yeah, I think it might have been, because it was probably before it got developed, didn't it? Again, so
okay.
Football stadiums were a little bit more shabby, shall we say, than they are now.
Yeah, and some would say a little bit better, I guess.
Well, yeah.
But I do remember that the Greek fans did make a lot of noise, and it was the first time, I think, that I'd ever really seen like flares in a ground.
Yeah, it was that proper sort of. It was a little bit. It wasn't intimidating in terms of the size of the crowd. It was just they support their team in a far different way. I think seeing all the foreign police as we came up is like, oh, okay, right. And then when we got into the stadium, they were quite, there was a bit of noise from them. There was some fireworks. It was a very different sort of atmosphere than we've ever been used to in England.
Yeah, certainly.
Still to this day, continental Europe is quite different, isn't it, from how we see it here? Certainly an eye-opener for a couple of young 23-year-olds, I think. Well, I'm sure there were a lot younger supporters out there than us, but yeah, it was a real eye-opener, I think. Do you remember the lineup for the game? Do you remember anyone in particular? Beckham was captain. Yeah, he was. Yeah, I think it would have been. Yeah, Gerrard was probably playing in those days. I imagine David Seaman was still in goal, wasn't he? Yeah. So I mean, Owen up front probably. Yeah, Michael Owen was there. It was David Seaman in goal, Phil Neville, Ashley Cole, Steven Gerrard, Rio Ferdinand. Martin Keown played in this one. Okay, must have been near the end of his career, I'm going to guess. Yeah, David Beckham was captain. Paul Scholes was there. Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen and Emil Heskey. And then three players who came on from the bench, Steve McManaman, Alan Smith and Nicky Butt. Alan Smith, that's a blast from the past, isn't it? I'm guessing, would he have been Leeds? Was that when he was at Leeds? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he was scoring goals at the time, I guess, wasn't he? Yeah, Leeds were decent as well at the time, weren't they? So yeah, and looking at there was some YouTube footage. Well, there isn't a great deal of YouTube footage of it, but I've seen the goals. We won 2-0, and it was Paul Scholes who got the first goal. Which, to be honest, I don't remember really anything about the game. But seeing the goals, Paul Scholes got the first one, a little sort of tap in from about 4 yards out, and then Beckham got a free kick right towards the end of the game. There you go, Beckham, a free kick at the end of a game versus Greece. Well, yeah. I remember the goal from the home game a lot more.
That's nicely done by England. Michael Owen just pushing on ahead here, hoping to get the pass. Instead, it's gone to Emil Heskey. Oh, and there's a goal for Paul Scholes. England have scored after 63 minutes. 25 yards out. Beckham lining the ball up. Ashley Cole is standing just to his right. And that is Beckham. Oh, and that's the second goal and the one that clinches 3 World Cup points for England.
I think maybe it's the whole atmosphere, when you sort of get wrapped up in that rather than almost the game. especially when it's your first sort of ever away game abroad. So
yeah,
my recollection of the game quite sketchy, but I remember it being quite comfortable for England, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was a bit naive in those days. We'd had a few comfortable qualifying games, so.
I mean, this, of course, was the qualifying campaign that we beat Germany in as well, 5-1.
Yeah, we didn't look. I don't think we were that comfortable in terms of the game against Greece compared to how we played against Germany. We couldn't really foresee that from this performance. But yeah, it was I think in a way, fairly typical England qualification performance. We got the job done against a side away from home that you should 9 times out of 10 beat.
Yeah. That's pretty much my memories from the game as well. But it's little things as well that are around it that I remember we were kept in after the full-time whistle, and Gary Lineker, with whoever was on like a match of the day programme, walked above us on some sort of gangway to exit the stadium with 2 other pundits, I think. And I seem to remember him waving to the England supporters down below. I don't know if you remember that one.
No, I don't. I'm not sure we would ever get that close to us these days. It's it was. I know it's only 20 years ago, but sometimes you think, in terms of like the coverage, I saw the grainy stuff on YouTube. It just doesn't. It's nowhere near as good as what we can find now when Sky are broadcasting Gibraltar versus the Faroe Islands, for example, live. It's just different. And yeah, they'll be in a swanky studio now, wouldn't they? The pundits never on the pitch, hardly ever anymore.
So that was, as I say, we got held in the ground for a little while, and then exited to make our own way home. And we had a bit of a hairy journey back, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Greeks like to show us their hospitality on the way home. So it's nice of the stadium to hold us back, just so the Greeks could get into position for their friendly attack on the metro train.
Yeah, so we had, I guess it would be like a football special that we got on the local or the nearest underground station that went straight into Athens Central, I guess. So where we were going to go to then get our train back. So this train was a non-stop train and went through various platforms.
But it was far off and out. That it was far enough out of town, the stadium, that it wasn't actually underground yet, was it? So
yes, yeah, you're right. So we went through these open air platforms, and lining the platforms were loads of Greek supporters, and many of them were just jeering and waving flags and that. But yeah, plenty of bricks came through or were attacking the train as we came through, didn't they?
Yeah, I don't think there was any windows that were not shattered, shall we say.
Yes, and unfortunately I seem to remember whilst there was a window that was open, or whether it was actually shattered, but one brick actually came through, and I seem to remember hit a young lady on the head somewhere. So she had a blood injury there, and there was someone who just shouted on the train, "Get your heads down!" That
was a policeman. I do remember it.
Was it?
I think they were actually when you look at it at the game early on the game, you're thinking they were being a bit heavy-handed, aren't they? Almost, but actually when it came on the way back, they were they protected the England fans very well, and I think they went to the ladies' aid as well. So fair play to them as well.
Yeah, it was quite a scary trip back to Athens. The centre of Athens.
15 minutes of fun, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, but fun didn't stop, did it? Because we pretty much spent the whole night in the city, or just sort of within a square, waiting for the sun to rise, that we could get the train back the following morning. Because for whatever reason, we didn't book any sort of accommodation, did we?
No, again, probably, a budget. And you think, we're going to be warm, we'll just stay up all night. We'll find a bar. I think after the little journey back, we weren't very comfortable finding a bar full of Greek people. We were kind of a little bit apprehensive, being a little bit naive maybe of 23-year-olds to think the whole of the population now hates English people. But so we sat in this square all night waiting for the sort of, the morning so that we could go and explore a bit more safely.
Yeah, so we did eventually go exploring as the sun came up, and we found ourselves by the Acropolis. Obviously probably the most famous piece of architecture in in the world, in Athens. And that was one thing I do remember, is seeing the sun come over it.
Yeah, it was quite special almost to go and see something so iconic when there's no one there. And that's the benefit of going up there, I don't know, at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, but yeah, if you're ever in a city with some sites early in the morning with nothing else to do, always go and do them then, because you'll get the benefit of a lack of crowds.
Yeah. After we'd seen the Acropolis, time to get back to Thessalonica, and this time we managed to get the right train and a much nicer, smoother, faster train back.
Yeah, this train was much more modern. I don't remember much of the journey. I think we did sleep for a lot of it because we were so tired after being up all night. But yeah, it was a much nicer train than the ancient thing we came down on. But
all in all, I thought it was a good trip. It was a relatively safe trip, bar the bricking of the train, and one I kind of look back fondly on. And it was the start of. I mean, obviously we've been to a fair few England home games, including that the reverse fixture with Greece. We were there for that one, sitting right on the very top back row at Old Trafford. But yeah, we then travelled to various World Cups together as well. I think it's been an enjoyable experience. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was obviously the prelude to first ever visit sort of outside Europe, to sort of Japan. And that was a pretty special World Cup, I think, for anyone that went to that, as I'm sure some rugby fans that have done that recently with the Rugby World Cup can sort of testify. So yeah, it was a really it was the start, wasn't it? It didn't put anyone off. No,
it didn't put me off Greece at all. A lovely country, and it was a really good trip.
And I think that was the last time I believe that we've played in Greece. So I think we're probably due another trip at some stage.
Yeah. They usually go around in fits and spurts, but we didn't play Greece. Not a country we probably played that often.
No,
I remember a friendly before USA '94.
Right.
When we stuffed them after they qualified and we hadn't, we then beat them 5-0, of course, just to rub it in that we hadn't qualified. But yeah, I don't remember. It's one of those countries that hasn't come up, unlike, Romania's, if we wishes to end up playing, didn't we? And
Poland as well.
Yeah, Poland, yeah, especially.
Well,
Sweden,
yeah. Well, let's. We'll see. Maybe there'll be another trip on the cards at some stage.
Yeah, and they're certainly. Again, I think they're one of those sides you'd expect to beat these days, but they proved their worth back in Portugal 2004. That was, I guess, now.
Yes, yeah.
So it was crazy to think that side. I think some of the players. Theo Zagorakis was in that Greek team, I believe. So they went on to sort of play in the Greek side 4 years later. That actually pretty much come up with one of the most amazing results in international football to win the Euros.
Dan, thank you very much for being part of it and sharing your memories. And
I hope your fellow attendees have more memories of the games they go to than I have done.
If anyone has got any memories on this particular game as well, yeah, do let us know.
All right, then, mate. Take care.
See you soon. Bye. Thank you very much for listening. Now, I hope it's given you a little light distraction to current events. Thanks to Dan for his time and provoking some of my memories. And if you'd like to share your memories and anecdotes of your very first England away game, please drop me a line. Email is 3linespodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet me at 3linespodcast and we can go from there. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Give us a little follow. And if you'd like to spread the cheer a little further, a thumbs up on the likes of iTunes is always welcome. Now, obviously, with no imminent games, I'll do my best to release these podcasts as and when I have the content. I've still got the England at the European Championship series to come, which has gone down really well. All previous ones of those are still available. But if you have an idea for the show, again, drop me a line. Now, in the meantime, do look after yourselves and each other. Until then, stay safe. Cheers.